Hi everybody, we're live for our Nissan class at Siftach. So today we're going to unpack as much as we can of the month of Nissan and connect to the energy of the month and Pesach a little bit. We may or may not have another class before Pesach, so we'll definitely touch on Pesach today. I don't know if anyone, I'll do a class next week, but I don't know if any women are going to come a day before Pesach this year. So maybe I'll just do a live and then send it out. All right, so thanks to everyone who's here in person and online and joining us. Very blessed to be here. So month of Nisan, the first, it's called Rosh Chadashim actually, which is interesting because the Rosh Hashanah, there's two heads. There's Rosh Hashanah, which is head of the year, and then which is Tishrei, and then there's Rosh HaChadashim, which is the head of the months. So we actually have two heads. That's kind of how we understand it. So Tishrei begins the new year, and Nisan begins the months, and it's very apropos because we actually were given the mitzvah of the new month in Nisan as well. And it was also picked, Hashem chose Nisan to be the first of the months, even though the first of the year is somewhere else. So what's the difference between the months and the year? Year in Hebrew is Shana, and it goes by the sun, it's the solar year. And Nisan is the head of the months, which is Chodesh, which is the head of the lunar year, because months go by the moon. The difference between moon and sun is that Shlomo Melech says that Ein kol chadash tachas hashemesh. The sun is very repetitive. Every day the sun rises, sets. It's predictable. You know exactly when it's going to rise, when it's going to set. You know it's all set. And there's nothing new under the sun, and that's also interesting because the sun is the head of the year, and Shana also can mean Yashan, which is old. It's repetitive. It's like that which is stable and consistent in our lives. And the moon is the exact opposite. The moon is the unpredictable. That's why it's called Chodesh, a month, because it's Chadash. It's completely unexpected. Month to month, we didn't even know when the moon would make its first appearance, right? When Rosh Chodesh would be, when we would designate the new moon. Would be like unpredictable and waiting for witness to come and show, and every day the moon is completely different. We just show, oh look, the moon is full, oh it's not there, it's tiny, it's big, it's beautiful. So the moon represents all that newness in our lives, and that's really truly what Nisan actually is. Nisan is the month of miracles. Nisan is sandwiched and like bookended by two nuns, and nun is the letter of Nes. Nun and represents miracles, so it begins with a miracle and ends with a miracle. So Nisan is the month of miracles, the biggest miracle being Yetziat Mitzrayim and Kriyas Yamsuf. And our sages tell us in the Gemara that in Nisan we were redeemed, and in Nisan we will be redeemed as well. So it's the month, an opportunity time for miracles, which is very beautifully represented by the moon and being the head of the months. And the first mitzvah that was given to us as a Jewish nation was to establish the new moon, because how can we keep the mitzvah, any mitzvahs, without knowing when the month begins? All the mitzvahs go according to the months and dates by the month. So this is the first, Nisan is considered the first month. The first day of the first month, right, was Rosh Chodesh Nisan. So this is the month Hashem chose to be the beginning of our Jewish calendar, because it's a miraculous month, and our existence as a Jewish people, not just the recreation of the world. Tishrei represents the entire world's birth or conception, and in Nisan we're representing our birth as a nation as well, becoming Hashem's nation. And as a nation, we are a miraculous nation. Our entire existence, every day and every generation, personally and communally and globally, our whole existence is miraculous. Our connection to Hashem is miraculous. The fact that we're still here is a miracle, and we defy all the laws of nature as a Jewish nation. We've defied nature personally and communally, I guess, on a national level as well. We defy all the laws of nature. So it's very fitting that Nisan is the beginning of is when we were established, in the beginning of our Jewish calendar. So every month we base on Sefer Yetzirah, and we go through the different tools that we are given through Sefer Yetzirah to understand the month. We're given the name of the month, which is Nisan, which could mean Nes, comes from Nes, which is a miracle. We're taught about the tribe connected to the month, which in this month is Yehuda, the zodiac sign of the month. Anyone know? Is anyone born here in Nisan? Our Aries, the ram or the lamb family.
That makes sense.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. The tribe is Yehuda, the zodiac sign is Aries. Then there's a letter that the energy of that month is drawn through one of the letters of the alphabet. In this month it is Hey. And then there's the permutation, the order of Hashem's name. There's 12 ways to rearrange Hashem's name that represents that all of creation comes through Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey. And this month, the first month, it's actually in the correct, perfect order, in Yud, Hey, Vav, and then Hey. So that's just, let me Oh, and then most importantly, we like to talk about the sense of the month, that there's an energy and a physical sense in our body that we tap into and that is strengthened and we experience the most during that month. And in this month, it is the sense of speech, which is very much connected to Hay and connected to Pesach, because one of the essential mitzvahs of Pesach is the Gadata Labincha, and it says Kol Hamar Belisaper, whoever increases in speaking the story and the miracle of Pesach, Harezim Meshubach, is praiseworthy. So it's a time connected to speech and to telling over, and we'll wrap all this together, B'ezrat Hashem. So Nissan is a month of miracles, like we said in Nes, and it's also a month of Geula, because it says we were redeemed in Nissan and we will be redeemed in Geula. The type of redemption that's given to us is, it says, we read in the Sidur, V'hayom Haras Olam is about Rosh Hashanah, and the Rizal says that Tishrei is the pregnancy and Nissan is the birth. It's the actual rebirth, because birth is just a gift, a miracle, going from one dimension to a completely new dimension. We see this already around us in spring. Nissan specifically has to be in the spring. That's the whole reason we have a leap year and we add extra months, just so that Nissan is in the spring, because spring really represents a new birth. We just enter into an entirely new place. We shed our winter coats very soon. We shed our outer layers of clothing. We spring clean. We remove all the excess things in our lives. Just regrowth and rebirth, and the blossoms come. She's getting our baby. Shout out to Siftach for hosting our amazing shir and for giving free coffee to new mothers. They are amazing. Hi to everyone who's watching. If you comment, I will be able to see who you are. So like we said, so Nissan represents the miraculous and the unexpected, represented by the moon, and giving us this bracha of the new moon. So in Nissan, we also have a Chabad day. Anyone know? The Rebbe's birthday is in Nissan. I'm sure you know. Yud Aleph Nissan is the Rebbe's birthday as well. So that's our Chabad date on the calendar. And then obviously Yitzias Mitzrayim and Kriyas Yam Suf. Okay, let's talk about so we talked about the name of the month and so let's talk about the idea that Nissan is birth, and it's moving from, it's a miraculous gift. So the type of redemption that we're given in Nissan is similar to a birth, in that it's a gift given to us. It's not something that we work for or have to go after on our own. Just like a birth, a child doesn't ask to be born; he just is born and just comes into the world. The type of miracle from Nissan was from above to below, which is how the letters of the month are formed. Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey from above. Yud, Hey being the higher letters going downwards to us. So it's the whole redemption that we will experience and have experienced is given to us from above. It's not something that we have an avoda to do at all. We see in most of the other chagim, there's davening and teshuvah or fasting or something. And in Nissan, although it feels like labor and we'll get cleaning, but really, there really isn't an avoda and as much of a spiritual avoda. There is a seder and all of that, but all we really need to do is just receive the gift. The Jewish people didn't have anything to do. They just had to sit back and let Hashem take them out and redeem them. It was from above to below. Hashem picked them up and took them. And we'll speak about this more in Shavuot and understanding that dynamic, that it was from above to below. And we really just have to be open to receiving that gift, just like birth is just given. The child just has to be there and want to come out. We see that it's a very feminine energy as well in Nissan, and this is told to us by the Chachamim that the schus and the catalyst for the reason we were redeemed was through the women as well. It says b'schus nashim tzidkanios, and the merit of righteous women, we merited to leave Egypt, and also in this coming redemption now, it will be in the schus of the women. And that's what the Rebbe spoke about a lot, that the women will be at the head. That's why right now we see more than ever just the feminine rising and the female power coming to the front and being the female leadership quality, and in everywhere around the world, universally, we just see the female taking the leadership role, just like in Mitzrayim, where when everyone else gave hope, Miriam was the only one who was able to look up and see beyond and see that there was something to go forward and see beyond and encourage her parents to continue and not to lose hope. And the women, we are told, they knew so much and they had so much faith in the redemption and the Geula that they prepared instruments to sing. They said, we know we're going to be redeemed, and then what will we play with? What instruments will we dance with? And they prepared instruments and tambourines and drums so that they can play and sing to Hashem afterwards. And it was in this faith because of this faith that the miracle occurred as well then. So it's a feminine month, which is also connected to the letter Hey, which is a very feminine letter from the letters of Hashem's name. I think we mentioned this last month, that there was 2 Heys as well, that the Hey is the feminine letter. It's a letter of receiving, it's a letter of speech. That's why women were given all the measures of speech, or 9 of the 10 measures of speech. So we'll speak about that soon. So it's a feminine month, also historically, practically, and also the energy of the month is it was a receiving energy rather than a dominant, more of a male taking an active doing role, but more of a creating a space role, which is what Nissan is essentially all about. So let's connect this to Yehuda a little bit, especially because your grandson was named Yehuda, right, this week, on Sunday. What? David Yehuda. So the shade that's connected to this month, according to Sefer Yetzirah, is Yehuda. Yehuda comes from the Lashon, who the first person to be named Yehuda was Yehuda, named by his mother Leah, as a gratitude to Hashem, Apam Oda, right? At this time I will thank. So Yehuda is also our name as a Jewish nation, gratitude, because it's the essence of Moda'ani, of being grateful. So what is gratitude and how is that connected to Nissan? Gratitude, the source of all gratitude is recognizing the source of everything in our life, is taking a moment to realize where everything in our life comes from and that it really comes from Hashem, and being grateful for things that we just take for granted that are there, the repetition of the sun every day, and stopping and being grateful for things just by recognizing the source of it. And that is very much what we do in Nissan. And also recognizing that it is just a gift given to us, that the things that we have in our lives, as much as sometimes we feel that we've earned it or we've worked for it, truly it's a gift that has nothing to do with our work. It's a gift from Hashem. We create vessels. And that's what gratitude is, and that is what the energy of Nissan is. It's a miracles that are given to us, not because of anything we've done or worked for, rather just by essence of who we are, because we are Hashem's child and Hashem's nation, that He wanted us to be His nation and He took us. And that is the type of miracles that we experience in Nissan. That is a gift. And what we need to do is tap into this gratitude and just recognize and just be open to receiving that gift from Hashem. We're told in the Gemara about someone who has an ego that ein ani v'hu yicholim lador, that I can't live in the same place, Hashem says, where someone has an ego. That Hashem wants to give us this gift and redeem us and help us experience this miraculous energy of Nissan, of complete rebirth and transformation and an individual and communal and national level. But if we don't create a space for that gift, there's nowhere to put it. We're completely full. And all that we're required in Nissan is to empty our house and to empty our soul. And what physical cleaning really is only just like a physical manifestation of what we're really doing on the inside, which is scrubbing away our ego and taking away all the excess layers that we have that are stopping us and covering us up from receiving this tremendous potential and this newness and this rebirth and this transformation that Hashem wants to give us. This is really a Yehuda idea. So the essence of what a gift means is that it's unexpected. If you expect it, then it's not a gift. And that it doesn't come from me. It has nothing to do with me. It comes from somebody else who's giving it to me. There's nothing given in return for a gift. It's like also connected to this idea of matanat lavyonim as well, which is why we can't grab a gift. We can't go after a gift and ask for a gift. All we can do is create a space to put the gift so we can receive it. If there's nowhere to put it, if there's no space and we're so full to receive this miracle and miraculous energy, there's nowhere to put it. So our real avoda and our only real avoda in Nissan is to shed all the spiritual excess in our lives and to create a lot of space for Hashem to bring miracles and bring newness into our lives. Really, we need to just return to our purest essential self, so that is where the source of miracles is, in our essence of our soul. And we have so many layers that we accumulate over the year, and especially in the winter, we accumulate so much. We bring so much in because we're indoors, right? We bring more things into our house that we keep layers on us physically. There's so many layers that we hold on to and baggage. And here in Nissan, it's like the spring cleaning. Not everyone universally wants a spring clean out. There's just an energy of freshness and starting again and growing, regrowing from start. And what we're really doing, and this is so aligned, is just removing so many layers that are covering who we are essentially physically in our home. We can't even appreciate and access what we do have when, like, our closet is so full with things that we don't wear. We can't even find or even anything to wear because you have so much. So less it really is more. And I heard a beautiful idea from Rachi Pinson that she mentioned that when Esav met Yaakov, Esav said, Yeshli Rav, I have a lot. What can I give you? And Yaakov answered him, Yeshli Hakol, that I have everything that I need. There's a difference between having too much and having Hakol, everything that you need. And minimalism is a very, very in theme for the last couple of years. Just getting rid of everything excess so that you can appreciate and enjoy and tap into the essence. But spiritually, even more. Just getting rid of so many extra layers of baggage and shedding all that ego and shedding all of that feeling of wholeness and self-accomplishment just negative thought patterns and all of the heaviness of the winter months that we've accumulated over the year, and just throwing it all away. And there really is a spiritual mantra that as we clean and empty our house of things, that the same exact time, simultaneously, what we really should be doing is getting rid, is meditating and shedding all of our connection to material things, our connection to our ego, our connection to the limitations we place on ourselves, to the insecurities that we have, and we're just scrubbing away all of the ego and all of these attachments that we have. So we're same way we're like, when you get rid of something, you have to unattach or detach yourself from it. To say, this served me well. How Mary Kondo gives so many beautiful ways to just say, like, thank you for your time. Even though I didn't wear you, you served, you gave me joy when I bought you. Just really being able to detach ourselves from our physical reality. That is really what Nissan is all about. I heard a nice story about somebody who was so careful about Pesach that he went to like his Rav and showed him. He said, I made a second house just to live in on Pesach because I don't want to have any amount of chametz. So he had another house that was perfectly Pesach-dik and he didn't have to clean. And then there was 2 issues with that he said. He said, you're missing the entire point of Pesach cleaning. The point is not to have chametz. The point is the process of eliminating, the spiritual process of getting rid of chametz, of having just a small pocket. Chametz isn't bad, and we'll talk about this in the next week's the video shiur. But chametz isn't bad. It's the excess that we hold on to that we have to have. We just have this window, these 7-8 days of Pesach, where we create a vacuum and a space where we return to our essential self. And there's a time to just refresh, where you just empty everything out and go into minimalism in order to bring the things back in that are true and meaningful into our lives, right? You like the rule, you can't buy new things until you first get rid of old things. You really can't enter a new relationship until you've shed all the baggage from a previous relationship. So chametz, although it isn't bad, there's a beauty in getting rid of that and scoring and scrubbing our soul. What we're really doing is just scrubbing all the layers and hurt and attachments that we've acquired and getting rid of that and shedding that. And the other issue with Pesach is that it's not that chametz is bad. Chametz is something that we want to re-enter after Pesach with a healthier relationship. Things and ego, if we don't have no ego and we were doormats and we were like matzah and flat all year, where would we find self-confidence to stand up for what's right and to push forward and do things in the face of challenge? So chametz isn't a bad thing. It just takes stepping aside for a little bit in order to re-enter in a much healthier and intentional way. And that's what Pesach gives us, a chance to step back and just clean ourselves and remove all of the excess layers and just be complete matzahs. So let's get to hay. This really connects to the idea of hay. Hay is the letter of creation. I think whoever watched the Friday shiur that I sent out, we spoke about hay as well. But it says that the world is created with hay. The Chachamim say, Behi baram, Eila toldat shemayim ba'aretz, Behi baram, Behei baram. That the world is created with hay. Hay is the letter of creation. It's also the root of breath. So hay represents speech. We even see it that physically, the letter hay represents breath. It represents all of speech because there's a lot of different letters that use different parts of our mouth. And hay is the breath that gives. Without breath, we can't speak any of them. So hay is the source of all of the other letters, the breath of all the letters and of all sounds. Right? So hay is the source of sound. It's also the source of silence, of breath, which is just silent speaking without any sound. Right? When we breathe out and there's just air and breath and no sound at all. But all of creation came about through speech, which is speech, and speech comes about through the letter hay. Even in the form of the letter hay, we said hay is feminine, and women were given this ability to speak. Speaking is not thinking of anything new. It's not giving over new words. It's just receiving an idea from your mind and channeling that outward into speech. And that's what a hay does. A hay has that hole on top to receive all the inspiration or intention or thoughts, and then channel it through the hole in the bottom to give it over to another person. That's what these spheros of hay, the spheros of hay represent Bina and Malchut, and another time we'll get into that in a deeper way, but women are Bina, women are Malchus, and we have this ability to take what's given to us and give it over outward, even in our body. That's what while a man begins the process of creation and active creation of the fetus through giving off sperm, all a woman's womb does is receive it, give that space in that hay, in that female womb, which to create life. Right, there's a space, and then let it outward from the bottom end. It really represents giving and receiving. But in order to speak, you need to be able to receive. opening on the top of the hay is essential for receiving the thoughts, because if there's no thoughts given, there's nothing to share. Someone can't, God forbid, think there's nothing to say either. So although hay is speech, it's also the pure act of receiving, which is what Nissan is all about. Just receiving the gift of Hashem's miracle that he wants to give us in Nissan. Now, we tend to think that Nissan is a month of miracles. Why? Because of Pesach. But truly, when we understand and understand Torah, we realize that it was the other way around. And I always say this, that it wasn't that Nissan is a month of miracles because we were redeemed and that's when it started. From now on, Nissan is a miraculous time. Rather, since the day Hashem created the world, Hashem put the energy into Nissan to be this tremendous power and potential of rebirth and of the miraculous and of moving from one state to a completely different, rebirthing into a completely different state, in a way of Pesach, in a way of leaping, not just moving and walking every single day, but in a way of Pesach, which means to jump from one state that we're in into a completely new state that's unrelated to the first place. And that's what jumping is, as opposed to just walking, where there's a connection from the last step you took to the next step you walk to. When you leap, you leap and you jump over everything and enter a completely new reality. And that's the energy of Nissan from beginning of creation, beginning from when Hashem created Nissan to be the month of the months. And then the reason that Pesach happened and the redemption happened in this month is because that is the energy of Nissan. So that was the perfect month for redemption to happen, and the only month it can happen, because that was the energy of Nissan from all days. So even unrelated to the miracle of Pesach, Nissan has this energy every single day of Nissan. Another practical fact about Nissan is the only month that we don't say Tachlon at all during the entire Nissan. So every day is a Yom Tov, really, and every day has this potential for the miraculous. What's that? Hay is also the letter of miracles, and we see this in the Torah. When Avram and Sarah were unable to conceive, the way that Hashem channeled and allowed them to suddenly open up and miraculously conceive, although the stars and the zodiac didn't allow that for them, was to add a hay to both of their names, which is so incredible. The hay is the potential for the miracle, the potential to move from one state to a completely new state. And it's interesting that Avraham, he received the vocalized hay, the hay that you hear, and Sarah received the hay that's just there, but it's not the silent hay, the receiving, the feminine hay, which is so powerful. So hay, even in the Torah, is this potential for the miraculous to happen through being a vessel to receive, through the opening of the hay, and through giving over and allowing ourselves just to be a conduit. Like before I prepare a shir, I try to and give over a shir, and I'm nervous about how it will go. I try to visualize it. I'm just a vessel to receive and to pass over to Pesach information over. And that really helps me remember that it's not really about me or how well it's delivered. It's really just about being a vessel to give over. And that really helps surrender and let go. And that's our whole job in Pesach, is to completely surrender to this tremendous power of Nissan, to leap and to transform our lives and to by cleansing ourselves, receive so much light and miracles from Hashem. So what is a miracle exactly? I don't know exactly, but a miracle is when something changes its form, when when vinegar can light like oil, when a chair becomes a table, when something switches and a frog becomes a prince. That's miracle. So how do we, then that's what Nissan is all about, changing form, and birth is changing form. And in order to change form of something, if you can get to the source, like if you've ever heard of the book The Alchemist, or read The Alchemist, or the idea of alchemy, it's going into the pure source form of gold and changing the elements in order to become something new. So in order to change the form of something, we get back to the root of it, to the essential core of it, and then it can become anything. If you go back into, and we spoke about this a lot in Adar, which is Ad Lo Yada, going to the source where everything is possible. So miracle really is, if you can go connect to the source of where everything comes from, then in that source, in that hay, the potential of all creation, everything is possible in that place. If we can go back and remove all the layers and return to that level. And the only way we can do that is through humility, through creating space and shedding all the layers and returning to that element. And we see this through Moshe Rabbeinu as well, that what made Moshe the one to speak to Hashem face to face, to be the one who brought about all the miracles, that he was the most humble of all men, that he represented what a hay is, the ultimate humility. And I keep forgetting to mention this, the hay of matzah. So this is the essence of Pesach. Pesach, it says, every day we eat matzah, we eat chametz, and on Pesach we only eat matzah. What's the difference between chametz and matzah? We learned that the words chametz and matzah are almost identical. Both of them have a mem and a tzaddik, The only difference is that chametz has a chet, like challah, and matzah has a hay, and the chet and the hay are almost identical. I always forget to bring the image of the hay with me and the chet, but we know how a chet looks and a hay looks. The only difference is the small opening on the top of on the top, and that is the humility and the openness to receive and to be Yehuda and to be humble and to be like Moshe, to create that vacuum and create that space and get rid of all chametz. Chametz is just bread that has given itself time to rise, that's rich, that is full and full of empty air, and that's a time when we just take a pocket of time and shed all those layers and just go back to the bare essentials, just bread and water, the essence of all life, the smallest, the minimal that we need to survive. We literally just mix bread and water, don't even allow it time to rise, and by making that space like Moshe Rabbeinu and removing all feelings of self and just being completely perfect, that makes us that vessel for humility, and that is the hay of Pesach, the hay of the month of Nissan, the hay of the creation of the world. And even in the Haggadah, we begin the Haggadah by Magid by saying what? Hey Lachmanya. The whole Haggadah begins with this idea of hey. Hey Lachmanya. Even the dipping represents humility. Bitul, which is Tvilah, which comes from Bitul, which we'll speak about. There's so much that the opening and the gap. All we're changing is taking that chet and opening it up and being broken a little bit and breaking ourselves a little bit. And nisyonot are so being broken, which are nisyonot and challenges, are so connected to nisim. Comes from the same word. That these brokenness in the matzah being cracked and being a broken person doesn't actually destroy us, actually builds us up and makes us so much stronger, because by being cracked, it allows space for the divine and for the miraculous to come into, right? Like one of my favorite quotes from the Katzkarav, that there's nothing as whole as a broken heart, that there's something so beautiful and whole about having that flatness and that emptiness and being broken and having these challenges and what we've gone through as a nation in Mitzrayim. That brokenness allowed us and to have that humility, to have that space for Hashem to come in and give us so much light in our lives. Also Magid, which is telling, which is speaking, which is speech, and which is really what Hay is all about, which is receiving to give over. And the essence of Nissan is the fifth, the Hay, which is number 5 of the Seder, the 15 steps of the Seder, right? Seder has 15 steps. So it's right. Kadesh Orchatz Karpas Yachatz Magid. The 5th one is telling, is speaking and giving over, and that's why speech is so powerful. Now, a side note about speech, or an important note about speech, what is the connection between speech and Pesach? It's everything, and it's freedom. Freedom of speech, that the entire mentality of transforming from a slave mentality to a free person mentality is speech. There's something really incredible that we see in the story of Pesach, that we see repetition, that when we were slaves we had no ability to talk, that we lost. That says that the first thing that Hashem told when Hashem asked Moshe to lead us is that Moshe said that I cannot speak, right? He had a challenge with speech. As a slave mentality, as a Jewish nation, we were nameless as well. It says we had no names. We were just like shratzim. We were just like rodents that multiplied, because slaves can't say anything. They have no rights, and they have no ability to decide anything for themselves, and they can't talk. They're just mute, they're just slaves that do what they're told without speaking at all, without expression. There's no self-expression for a slave, and speech is the essence of all expression. All of expression begins from speech and communication through art or through speaking. That is what freedom is, expression and being able to express our highest self. And slavery is the opposite of communication. It's the breakdown of all communication. We don't even have a name to call ourselves by. That's why it says a man from the Shevet Levi took a woman from the Shevet Levi, and we say, why don't they have names? Why don't we call them Amram and Yocheved? Because in the slave mentality, they're just beyond and broken to that level where there is no expression of self or name or speech. Moshe Rabbeinu had a hard time speaking in the beginning, and even Paro, we learn, is Perah. He also represented the opposite of speech. And freedom is the exact opposite. Freedom, when we were taken out, the first thing Hashem told us is V'higadata. I'm taking you out, Laman to Sapru, in order that you should be able to tell over this story, because that's what freedom is. I'm taking you out so that you can be able to express this and tell over and represent what speech is, which is total expression, and being able to communicate and connect, which is what freedom represents. So that is the depth. Also, Pesach, I forget who says this, says that Pesach also can mean Pesach, a mouth that communicates. Peh and Sach, which is Lasiach, right? To communicate and to converse. So there is a very deep connection between being free and being and which represents self-expression through communication and through speech. And that the more we tell, the more we amplify our freedom. We're saying this story over in Heilach, in Haggadah, and in Heilach Ma'anya, and reaffirming our potential to express and to connect to another person and to be our own individual. Okay, let's cover a couple more quick ideas. The zodiac. How does this connect to the Aries? So it's pretty, in the one level, it's pretty obvious. The Aries is the symbol of the ram, which comes from the lamb, the sheep family, and by the vessel that we were given by Hashem to be redeemed is to slaughter the sheep, the ram, during Nissan. Why? I also heard something really okay, because the ram represented everything that the Egyptians served. They were sun worshippers, which represented the consistency, the slavery mentality that we're stuck in this routine that continues every single day. And they also worship the lamb and the sheep, which represented like was their god. It was the god of the sun, and they worshipped the Nile, which is like the natural, that we just expect to get water every single day. And by slaughtering everything that Egypt stood for, worshiping the natural, worshiping the Nile, worshiping the sun, we slaughtered that, and we're able to go from that space of being slaves to the natural and go into the state of the miraculous. And what's really interesting is that it happened, we slaughtered their god, the sheep, in the month of the ram, and when it's at its highest on the 14th day, which is when the moon is at its fullest, so the energy of that ram is at its fullest. And what's interesting is that it had to be done midday, specifically when it's at its most powerful. So we were slaughtering that idea, the ideal of being stuck and trapped in our continuous existence. Also, it says that a lamb is the only it says a lamb is the only animal that has the innate ability to arouse compassion through its voice. So there's a connection between lamb and speech and connection. And when you hear a lamb cry, it arouses natural compassion. And that's why the Jewish people are compared to a lamb as well, that Hashem just wants us to cry out and speak to him and turn to him. And that's what, when as soon as we cried out, we were silent. It says that we suffered in silence for over 100 or I think 200 years. We suffered in silence as slaves. And all it took was Hashem heard the voice. He heard our cry without even words, just the cry from our just crying out to Hashem in pain, just saying, "Ow, Hashem, this hurts, this is painful." And immediately Hashem said, "I can't take this anymore, and I'm going to free you." And that's when Hashem immediately called Moshe to free them. And that is what a lamb. Why in many places the Jewish people are compared to a lamb in Tehillim, and right, like Hashem is our shepherd, and Mizmor LeDavid, and also in being a lamb surrounded by 70 wolves. That the same way that a lamb arouses compassion through its voice, our power is our voice, is our it's our potential to just cry out to Hashem and touch Hashem's core, and He frees us and Hashem's kryptonite, I guess. There's so much more to share, but I feel like, let me see how we're doing with time. Anyone know?
11 o'clock.
Okay, so I'm going to wrap up, and next year we'll get to the rest of the ideas with Mashiach. I want to just speak a little bit about this space of Pesach, that there's a vacuum, that in order to have a miracle, we have to have a pause between the old reality and the new reality that we're entering. That there's a moment where we stop and just create a space for the miracle to happen. And there's our avoda, and then there's the clearing up, and then there's just that moment of ayin. And David HaMelech says, Shir Malos, Asa Enai Haharim, Me Ayin Yavo Azri. So first of all, there's the Asa Enai Haharim, that the step to leaving our state is looking up to heaven, remembering where everything comes from. And then me'ayin, and knowing that the true help and the true miracle comes from a level of ayin, of an empty space that we have no control over, and that's the surrender that happens during Pesach. That there's just a vacuum of time without any chametz, that we just create a space. And we were talking about this in relation to COVID, that it really seems like that space that we're creating now, that there's like a space where we go inwards and kind of like don't do all the things that we're normally doing, in order that when we step outside in the world, when everything goes back to normal, we enter a completely new reality, because we've gone inwards and allowed this miracle to happen. And God, just like there's that space where the baby kind of just is and allows that creation and that development to happen by doing nothing, there's a space between our old reality and our new reality where we just sit and surrender to Hashem and just ask Hashem and just be receiving and look towards Ayin and know that there's nothing to do with us. It's just from the source of all life, that from Hashem will be that space. So there's davening, there's creating the vessels, and creating a vessel by clearing out space and connecting to the spiritual source of it. And then there's waiting, and waiting not like the expectation, just making that empty space and surrendering for Hashem to come and do the miracle. And it really feels like that's what we were saying about COVID, even like detaching from communication with others, so in a strong way, detaching even from smell to re-access smell in its deepest way. All the things that we've detached from are so similar to Pesach, where we detach from chametz in order to come back in a complete and re-enter chametz in a completely new reality and re-enter our world in another state, in another level. So our next week and a half that we have until Pesach are this ability to clean out the physical chametz, but really to feel that we're just removing all the layers and creating a space for miracles to occur in our lives personally and in our homes and in our community and as a nation and for the entire world. And this quiet space that we create in COVID is also that space allowing this womb, in the womb, allowing a miracle to grow and allowing a miracle to occur. So I give all of us a bracha that in the next few weeks and through Pesach this year, that we will all be able to surrender and be open and hold our right and be open like a matzah and be humble like a matzah and receive so much light and miracles in our lives and shift from one state to a completely new state and experience tremendous rebirth and growth in physical ways and in gashmius ways and spiritually and through all matters that we're experiencing in our lives. And may this month be the true month of true redemption, and the miracle of all miracles should happen when the entire world will transform into a new state where there's no sickness and no death and no pain at all. And may we leave our homes with COVID behind us and enter into a world that's an entire new reality than before we entered into our homes and have only experienced good. Thank you so much for joining.